Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Show. My name's Yvette Adams and I'm your host. Here we're going to meet some young people doing amazing things in business. And today, many of us will know that you can't always learn the skills you need just from going to tertiary institutions. So gaining work experience is always a good idea. And today we're going to talk to an amazing young woman, Christina Chun, who has been working with young people en masse, connecting them to organisations to not only make a difference, but get that really valuable work experience. So welcome on the show, Christina.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
Fantastic. So, Christina, you've worked with a lot of 12 to 25-year-olds, and in the information you gave me, there was a report by PwC saying that 70% of Australians are studying for jobs that won't even exist in the next 10 years. That's a crazy stat, right?
Yes, it definitely is. So with the high schools that we've worked with, I think STEM is a very big component now. There's a new curriculum that's coming in where Year 7 through to Year 10s need to study coding. So imagine all of these high school kids who are going to come out with new skills. It's going to reshape the job force, and so I think there's going to be a massive impact, and it's like how to stay on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is Australia any different from anywhere else in the world in regards to what we're learning at tertiary institutions, what we're coming out with? Are other places in the world more up to date?
One of my experiences would be to go to Silicon Valley. So I went there prior to developing OneScope, which is the current enterprise. So to give you an example, there were just robots as security guards wandering around.
Cool.
And these robots had like 360 vision. They would stop whenever people would stand in front of them as well. So that in comparison to us having human security guards, I'd say there's a massive gap between the US and Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if students are at tertiary institutions and they know that what they're studying isn't necessarily going to get them a job or isn't necessarily relevant, with the ones you meet, how do you think they're feeling about their future?
I would say a bit uncertain. So right now it's still necessary to go to university and get that degree because to go into the corporate world, that is a requirement. But a lot of the times that's just the first step. It's the foundations that allow the corporates to filter. The next step is the interview. And a lot of people fail that because they don't have the communication skills or the confidence in order to get through it or even problem solving skills. So this is where more work experience and other extracurricular activities come through. And that's what's going to differentiate you from other people.
Absolutely. So how do we change that perception? I mean, I meet young people, I take work experience students, but I know there's a whole lot of others out there who don't think they need to do work experience and that they're so busy just studying. How do you change that perception that, you know, work experience is a good idea?
At the moment in Australia, all Year 10 students are supposed to do work experience. So these are 15-year-olds. They get 2 weeks that are in school and they can go and look for retail stores or companies to work at. At the moment, a lot of them go to McDonald's or retail stores. But what we're trying to do is shift that towards corporates. So we've had companies that have really supported us like NAB. They've taken 2 of our 15-year-old girls and took them into their finance division. And it pretty much changed the perspective of these girls. What was finance or what is finance? And how does NAB look like internally rather than just knowing them as a bank?
Yeah.
I think one of our 15-year-olds went to Google as well, which was very impressive. Yeah. But it goes to show that these girls have potential and they just need to be given that opportunity. Because when they do well in those 2 weeks, it means there's an internship that could come up, or when they enter university, it could be a cadetship as well. So it really paves the way.
So I think we better explain at this point what you actually do. So your company is called OneScope. Would you like to explain to everyone what that is?
Yep. So in its most simplest form, OneScope connects students aged 12 to 25 to all the opportunities that exist in the market. So primarily work experience. And right now there are platforms out there that do connect, but they don't have the end-to-end process. So kids can go on and they search. So if they want to do medicine, what are all the opportunities that exist for medicine? And then they're able to apply on the platform as well as evaluate it. So everything is a central hub. And we bring together universities, corporates, students and schools, and they all interact on that one platform.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How long have you been going for?
I think the ID came last year, November. And then,
It's quite new.
yeah, it is. And we've been working with the University of New South Wales, so it's only been a couple of months.
So would you consider it still a pilot, or have you really got some runs on the board? Like, how many people are using it? How many students have you connected?
It's not even in the public yet. So at the moment, we were going to launch in July, but we are discussing investment at the moment, and they were saying rather than launch a startup or a prototype, and then we'll have students who use it and may not like it, let's go with a big bang. So we want 100 schools on the platform, 20 companies, 30 not-for-profits, and 5 universities. And then we have a launch date where everyone is expecting that to launch, and they just all hop on one day.
Because is it fair to say, in a way, you're like a matchmaking service? You're matching students to opportunities. So you've got to have a bit of both. It can't be too student heavy or too opportunity heavy.
That's correct, yes. So we're going to try to find that balance depending on how many students across Australia we want to cater to, and in terms of companies and universities, what they can offer.
Yeah, sounds good. So I know from working with young people as well, you're all about giving them a seat at the table, a voice, a platform. And I know you're also all about women getting a seat at the table, which I actually am as well, and young people too. Because we really need their perspectives on things, don't we?
We do. A lot of businesses are creating products and services. They do surveys, but that's usually as far as they'll go, or do they do market research? But what I've found working with high school students is that's a very difficult market to penetrate. To actually hear the student voices, you need to go into the schools, you need to understand their cultural backgrounds, like their parents even. And the data that you can get from that is very valuable. And if you can shape your product and service around their voices, it matters big time.
Because even just yesterday, you yourself were on a panel as the only female, weren't you?
Yes.
So how do you get yourself in those positions, and what would you say to other people who might have something to say and want to be in those positions but don't know how to get on the panel?
I don't think I really reached out for that. There's not many female entrepreneurs or female entrepreneurs that run tech solutions.
And who are young as well.
Yeah, correct. So I think we get picked out, and it depends on what we do with that opportunity and how vocal we are. So it's that.
So you have to not be afraid to speak your mind, would be fair to say.
That's correct, yeah. And we're at a time where it's, I think, just the beginning. There's a lot of talk on women and leadership, female entrepreneurship as well. So
what are some of the key messages you share when you're on a panel like yesterday? I guess it depends where the conversation goes, but what are the flags you're always flying?
The key one would be to do with silly questions. A lot of the times people don't tend to ask because they think it's not worth asking, or they'll feel embarrassed by it. And that is what, it's all in your mind. So at the time when I've been, like every time I do panels, there are kids in the audience where I know they want to say something, but they don't end up putting their hands up. So I do pick them out, and sometimes their questions are very valid. Yeah. So definitely that.
And we've got to probably change some perceptions in the process of being on these panels and having a voice, don't we? Because I think there might be a perception out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but that young people, work experience, they're going to be a burden, they're not mature enough, they're not ready, they can't add any value. What would you say to perhaps businesses out there who are thinking, I wouldn't take a work experience student that's still at school?
Yeah, there are a lot of businesses out there, and so we have filtered many before we've come to some who have agreed to take 2 to 5 students, and it's never worked out poorly. These kids, at a certain age, their confidence levels are still very high. They're still willing to experiment and try, and they really want to do this. They're so eager. Whereas university students, you get to a point where you feel like you're just doing it because you have to. And because these kids have that enthusiasm and that mindset, they end up, they're so excited on their first day of work. The kids that I've worked with, just going to buy their first business attire as well, I can see how happy it makes them and how happy it makes their parents. So it's leveraging off that excitement because they can do so much with it.
So what sort of tasks do businesses that you connect students to tend to get the students to do?
We'd be looking at putting them into divisions that the kids are interested in. So it could be finance or marketing or coding. They'd be given admin tasks, but they would definitely follow like key people in the actual organisation.
So a lot of mirroring, shadowing.
Correct, yes. And seeing what is it actually like to work at NAB, for instance.
Do they actually do tasks though and get given procedures and follow the procedure, etc.?
Yep, so they would get to sit in on team meetings and understand how things work, and they'd be asked for their own inputs as well. So in the case where they do have ideas, that's where it,
And if some companies are watching this going, well, maybe I could help out here and take some of these students that OneScope can connect us to, what sort of companies do you like working with? What do they have to have organised before they reach out and say, I'll take a student?
I think it's going to get to a certain stage where companies are going to want to work with us. This is looking at the next generation. A lot of companies are struggling with talent acquisition as well, keeping talent. So the millennials are jumping every 1 to 1.5 years to another company.
Is that the stat, is it?
Yes,
pretty frequent.
That's correct, yeah. And I know the Economic World Forum just came out, and only 20% of millennials want to work for corporates. A lot of them are actually looking at the startup space, like entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So it's going to get to a certain stage where you're not just looking at women employees, you're just looking at the younger generation and how to actually attract and retain that talent.
And they're a smaller talent pool because we've had
Correct.
all the baby boomers retiring, and
That's
there's
right.
less of them coming through. So
That's right.
we're going to have to be more clever with how we
Exactly, and
entice
some
them to
companies
work for
have
us.
recognised that. So it's a matter of we've got the early adopters, and then once we prove that works, there's going to be a wave of companies that have to hop on board.
Tell us more about millennials. What's your spin on them? How would you describe a millennial to people who are like, what is a millennial?
Oh, millennials.
Millennials.
Yes. So research-wise, they feel very entitled. The work that they produce may not be of very high quality, very demanding. So that's all of the research there. But after working with them, if you manage to motivate them in certain ways, so that a lot of them aren't motivated by money, at least the ones that I've worked with, it's all about being responsible for a project, seeing it carried out from beginning to end, and then gaining recognition for that process.
And lifestyle would be a big part, right?
Correct.
They would want flexibility and a cool workspace and things like that, I imagine.
That's right. And it's all about the people. So that's what I found. And if you've got a good culture and you've got good people who always just focus on teaching, for instance, or so it's no longer a hierarchical structure, everything is flat. Yeah, you treat them as adults, even if they're 15 years old, give them decisions to make and actually let them carry that out. And if there's a mistake, then help them actually get through it. I think it's that. It's about how you treat them.
And I think on the technology side, a lot of them are pretty knowledgeable and can probably add some value as well there.
That's correct.
So have you seen any cool stories of someone you've sent in who's implemented something or really made a difference?
Yes. So there's a 15-year-old girl called Elisa. She's been our intern for probably a year now. Very savvy with social media and technology. She was trying to teach me how to use Snapchat. So because there's all these social media platforms that are coming out and how to manage all of them in one go.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.